How's it going? I hope everyone's having a nice whenever they're watching this. I wanted to do like a live kind of voiceover while we're watching through a game just to give my thought process on what I'm thinking when I'm watching a player and scouting and thinking about the draft and such. I'm using the highlight channel Kashigi on YouTube. I will link below. Invaluable resource for people like me who either don't want to watch full games or don't have the time or the resources. These like are the best cut ups that because they have non-box score stuff like rotations and missed assists and stuff. So we're gonna go over a game, maybe two, of Reed Sheppard, who has been one of the stories of this early cycle. A pretty under-recruited freshman, seemingly, who has been incredible for Kentucky on both sides of the ball. So let's dive into this game. This is just all of his relevant possessions from this Miami game. And look, and obviously the three-point shooting has been ridiculous. I don't think Reed is going to shoot like 90% forever. And where he ends up landing as a shooter is going to be pretty important. This is some good and some bad. Reed defensively is going to be a big question. Even though he's like an incredible playmaker, which we'll get to, it's hard to thrive on defense in the modern NBA at his size, and his lack of wingspan and vertical explosion are issues where he passes off this switch. Like the technique, the awareness, all of that is great, but when he gets beat by like an NBA level wing or future NBA level wing in Wooga Poplar, he's just a little slow to recover, and those gaps become even larger in the NBA and more difficult to overcome. So that's a question that I'm thinking about, is how translatable are the defensive traits, which we'll keep talking about. Another confident catch and shoot. Reed spots up very, very deep and has absolutely no conscience. He just shoots the ball whenever he catches it, which is a great trait for shooters. He definitely has to spot up a little deeper because of his size limitations, and I definitely think there are times when he's bothered by really tight contests, but he's been shooting the lights out, and that's definitely worth something. Once again, the closeout defense is going to be something to monitor. A little bit overly jumpy here, just like a little mistake that most freshmen make. And I think a drive like this is really interesting. We see a nice pass to the corner, kick out for three, but this is an interesting one to look at on plays like this, because again, it's so hard to separate small guards sometimes. And is this going to translate? I look at a play like this. He's not getting a ton of separation. This defender, Kaishawn George, is sticking with Reed Sheppard right here, and it will be a difficult finish. This is a good read, recognizing the help and making the one pass away there. But the questions are, in the NBA, is he gonna how often are you gonna have a passing window this open? And when you're not guarded by another freshman, how is this going to work? Like the space creation, the speed, all that definitely matters for being a slasher at the NBA level, but it definitely works at the moment, or it's working at the moment for Reed. Kind of gets blown over on the screen. Good footwork here, good technique, hand attached, other hand attached, but he forces this guy to take kind of a bad shot. Pick and roll defense is always an interesting thing to evaluate because so much of it is like scheme dependent. Nice tag and recover right there. So much of it is scheme dependent, and so much of it is like mistakes that we aren't sure if it's the player's mistake. But again, the off ball team D stuff is really great. We see Reed super active, digging down to disrupt drives, and is always really well timed and recovers quickly, and is just very active in poking for the ball. And that's kind of what you have to do as a smaller defender to be impactful. And he has really incredible hands in that way. Another confident drive by Reed, and just like a beautiful pull-up jumper. And the questions are, like, how sustainable is this leaning pull-up jumper? The shooting, like the flashes are amazing. All the indicators are fantastic. The volume, the different kinds of shots he's taking, the free throw, it's all great. And decisive attacking off of the catch. Beautiful little hanging pull-up. It's all really good stuff. And I don't think the shooting numbers were so incredible in high school, but the early returns, another steal there with the quick hands, are very, very good. And it seems like he's a pretty legit shooter at this point. Obviously, that's going to be a huge question as we go forward. just like the willingness to make these rotations is rare for freshmen. And though he's not jumping very high or he's not like super big or long, just getting in the way makes this not an open dunk. And though he blows a dunk right at the rim that Omer should hit, Reed's presence definitely altered that shot a little bit. And even being a little guy, obviously in the NBA that becomes harder to do, but it's a valuable thing to be well positioned. And he hits another beautiful catch and shoot three there. We see him, this clip's cut off a little bit at the beginning, but we see him get turned here, and the speed again at the point of attack is going to be a question. Like when he gets burned and has to recover, are the recovery tools going to be there? The hands again, just you cannot be lazy with the ball around Reed Sheppard. The old like thing about bigs is keeping the ball high. Like that is because of players like Reed who will just swipe away any opportunity, and that is a real important trait. This is a gorgeous little pull up here. Even if it doesn't go in, I love the space creation here using the kind of like stiff and undynamic handle, but he does a really good job reacting to this defender's positioning here. We see this is kind of his top foot. He's showing that as a top foot. So Reed goes the other way. Beautiful little pull up jumper, doesn't go in, but the creation to me is, and like the process of the jumper is always going to be the most important thing. Lateral quickness, solid here. Gets driven all the way back. Strength concerns are always going to be an issue. How is he going to deal with really bigger, like thicker, burlier guards trying to get after him? But yeah, he just like has like that playmaking instinct that some players just have. And regardless of size or stature or physical tools, Reed just has that playmaking instinct. He forces turnovers. He knows where the ball is, and that's a real important thing. And the passing, I think, is quite solid. Not like an elite passer or anything, but just a really smart decision maker. Doesn't make dumb passes, is going to play within the flow of the offense, find his teammates where they're most open and where they're like in the best spots to succeed. I do think screen navigation could and should be like a path to defensive value, just with how like quick and agile his feet can be. Great job staying over, using his hands to disrupt as well, and gets a nice contest in there. His defense overall at the college level is excellent, but of course there are many college great defenders who don't end up being good NBA defenders because of translation issues. That's obviously why we have the draft, to figure out how that translation works. Nice job disrupting again. This is the kind of stuff that differentiates like regular or average defenders from like NBA level playmakers. And Reed has this instinct, disrupts this drive. Otherwise, Trey Mitchell was not in great position, but Reed comes from behind, swipes that ball out with perfect positioning, and ends up totally destroying that possession and getting a layup the other way. These kind of team D off-ball instinct stuff are maybe one of the most important components of NBA defense, and I think more people are starting to realize that and recognize that as like more drafts become more of these guys become good. And the quick processing again, no wasted holding the ball, dribbles, gets the ball immediately, so his teammate obviously turns it over there, but he can keep moving the ball immediately. That's just a valuable thing to have. And over the last couple years, I've really come to fall for the idea that off-ball play is a really important skill, and it is a skill. It's not something that just like every player can do. You have to have a certain kind of feel to like understand spacing and positioning, and obviously like the shooting and handling skill to make use of that. And I think that's something I'm really valuing. You just have to have it for fitting into an NBA system, unless you're like one of the 10 best players in the league. And Reed certainly has that off-ball feel where he notices his defender falling asleep, reloads to the opposite corner, and Rob, who I'll probably do another video on soon just because he's been so awesome, Reed ends up finishing there. Another quick extra pass, and he gets rewarded with the open 3. I think he's going to cash that one as well. He is on an absolute shooting tear. Again, going to be interesting to see where he lands as a shooter after this 1 year, because I imagine at this rate he's going one and done. He definitely should at this point, based on his play. Regardless of the concerns we talked about, I think he's worth a look in like the back of the first round. again, we see defense against quicker players. He can reach a little bit to compensate, and that is the trade-off, of course, of his defensive play style is ball handlers who have a better handle or just end up beating him on a certain moment, and he's not a guy who has great recovery tools if he does get beat. Obviously, if he can get back into position, he has great instincts, but the recovery tools aren't always great. And sometimes the size is just going to be a hindrance as he gets behind the play, but it's not really his fault. I think there's a lot of traffic here, and arguably maybe Reed should have tried to attach a little bit better earlier, but he does well to get back into position here to be like a body and a presence. But at some point, when you're that size, there are going to be plays where there's like physically nothing he can do, and that's obviously always only going to get worse and more common. just fucking shooting the ball. The deep range is awesome. Like he like passes the shooter smell test. Like sometimes you just know. Like this is how I felt like with Jet Howard last year. And felt with many other guys, but he just like has it, and I think the numbers will probably end up being pretty good, even if not elite. Again, a beautiful stationary passer, great look by Tierra there, but Reed isn't, a guy who's gonna make crazy like live dribble, pick and roll, bounce passes. He's not gonna like be a guy who hits the roller here. He's like a very risk averse passer, which is good and bad, of course. Picks up the ball, sees the defender sleeping, and slips it in, and whew, that is a beautiful extra pass right there. Absolutely wonderful play there by Tierra, who I really like. He's been very fun to watch this year. Great screen attached there, as we talked about. Screen navigation, so important in the modern NBA that's obsessed with screens, and Reed just stays attached here. Really good job getting out in front of this, sliding, and getting skinny around that screen. Makes that a more difficult pass, and ends up, as he always is, pressuring at the rim. Even if it's not always like resulting in turnovers or blocks or missed shots, he's going to be there and he's going to be a presence. And over time, that stuff adds up, and it definitely is impactful. Another beautiful pass. This one is really impressive. And some of like the mid-air reading he does, definitely like, again, closeout attack. He's not creating himself, but he's paying the defense for. Again, this is like really bad defense overall, but he is finding the open passes, and it's to some extent I can't punish him too much for taking what defense gives him and the defense not being better. I think it matters at the highest level, but he's exploiting the defense that he's getting in a way that's really effective. Another cookies there. That's all he does. If you get near Reed, then he is going to pick your pocket. The closeouts are going to have to improve, and I think closeout defense is a really underrated, important trait in the modern NBA. A lot of the time, he'll like have to do a full 360 because he's just not quick enough to, or like balanced enough to stop and change directions with the slide, which is definitely like a major defensive issue, and one that I do think he's going to have to improve. But it's definitely, of course, workable because he has good footwork in other aspects of the game. Another just ridiculous pass, and Rob, what a finish. These two are amazing, and I think Rob is so freaking good. He is like a jump passer, and jump passers are, you're either Halliburton or you're just like a bad passer, but excellent read here, making this cross-court skip pass. This one is really great, watching this defender sink. Perfect placement to Rob, who makes a beautiful finish. And again, he's definitely like a secondary off-ball passer type, but he is really damn good in that role. Another relocation out to the corner. I mean, this is like as dominant a college guard who's not like the most star of star scorers really gets. Again, we see him swipe down, which of course is going to result in some fouls. That's just how it's going to be, especially at the next level. Really nice drive here as well in space. He has these simple crossovers, and he's really good at playing off of defenders' leverage. And again, doesn't create a ton of separation here, and more athletic help defenders make this a lot more difficult, but it's a great finish with extension. He's got great touch. He's really solid getting those balls up around the rim with the length that he does have. Again, we see very like run off the line focused closeouts, which again, part of it might be more scheme related, but for Reed, I think that's definitely something to monitor, and just one more bomb for good measure. And I think I'm going to do one more game because I'm enjoying this, and I hope you are too. Let's talk about this Kansas game, which definitely wasn't as impressive statistically, but we see Reed starting off with great screen navigation as well. Even though he kind of gets in front and this defender or this offensive player is going to go back baseline, Reed is able to trail with him and get a stop right there because of that agility and like general screen nav footwork when he doesn't have to slide or be explosive at the point of attack. He's a great outlet passer. We've had a couple in this video, and that I don't think we've really talked about. Again, just another solid contest, and Reed always getting in there whenever there is a ball that is even kind of maybe coming loose, and we see him get down low and make a really nice pass there after he after he loses the ball. But Reed is a really, really solid player. Again, we see him wall up here, just add some extra help. It's the little things like this. Most random freshman college guard defenders would follow their man, even though there's no need to because of how cramped the spacing is. But Reed notices this and is able to wall up and provide that extra help that might be the difference between Hunter Dickinson. And again, we see Reed going for a steal here. The playmaking instinct, he adds so much value as a defensive event creator. Obviously isn't going to be able to do too much in a one-on-one transition against Kevin McCullough, but that's not something that we're really faulting him for. That's not something that's super important to me. And he's aware he's not getting beat by cutters. The swiping defense at some point, though, even if you are well-positioned and you're in a good spot, normally the lack of physical tools is a big problem. And I don't think it should be overlooked. And I do think that probably puts a ceiling on how high Reed can be for me. Because, I mean, it really impacts both ends. Defense more if he's like a really good shooter, which can mitigate a lot of those more physical limitations. But again, it's going to be something to track over the season. Players can get more athletic and improve that part of their game. He's just knocked down, like immediate pull, hand down, man down. You cannot give Reed this much space because he will pull up from 5 feet beyond the line and he will hit. And that deep range is going to make him a more effective driver. He's going to be able to blow by defenders who are overplaying his jumper. It's overall just a really great trait. And we see some beautiful point of attack defense where, again, we see the foul called at the end here, but he cuts off this initial drive towards the middle. Beautiful job mirroring, forcing a change of direction. And then he sprints back the other way. The feet move so quick. He's definitely crazy. Those like football, like agility footwork, like the ladder on the floor. And I don't know if this is a foul, but the rim protection is just not going to be very effective against most NBA level wing players. Another example of like the creation on ball not being that great. He's not great handling versus pressure, and he's not going to make higher level reads like these in traffic passes to rollers. That's not something that he's comfortable and confident doing at this point in his career. Again, we see him kind of just get moved back, and his guy doesn't end up scoring, but he ends up getting a wide open shot at the rim. Great burst there to get past, as he does have pretty decent burst. It's not like incredible or anything, but he definitely can blow by, especially like other wings or slower wings you get on him. This guy opens up his hips, number 10, really slowly, and Reed's able to take advantage, draw a foul, and he's going to get to the line, and he's going to knock down his free throws because Reed is definitely a good free throw shooter at this point. Great job staying over the screen. The screen defense, I'm feeling like as I'm watching this, is really a positive, and I think that matters for defensive projection. So good getting skinny, staying attached. We've seen this quite a few times over these two games where Reed is able to stick and stay attached and work through screens. Again, we see him take a good path. A lot of players, like when guys relocate or don't take the normal path around different types of screens, kind of don't know what to do, but he does a good job going over there, finding the correct path to take. And it's this little like off-ball technique and awareness that is really important. Obviously it gets beat when it's important because at some level, this is also just like really bad defense by Trey Mitchell right there as well. So that's obviously not going to help. But pull-up three, you probably should not leave Reed Sheppard wide open. They just left him wide open, and he's a good enough shooter at this point to where he is going to be punishing the wide open pull-up threes that you leave him. More fantastic defense initially. The change of direction around this little snug elbow pick and roll keeping to DeJuan Harris, who obviously isn't the most dynamic creator or anything without like the best handle or scoring ability, but Reed is doing a really nice job containing his drives, keeping him away from like the open middle of the paint. And that's what you want to see from a small defender, to be able to stick with screens and force point guards away from their spots. And this, a bucket like this is much more the fault of like Edwards and Tiero and the other off-ball defenders than Reed is for forcing him into a compromised position regardless. Great decision. Again, we see like monitoring tendencies, like what do these players do in certain situations? Is it consistent? Is it like more selfish? Is it more selfless? And not like neither of those terms meaning good or bad, but for Reed, it's again very like he's going to kill his dribble. He's going to look around. He's going to scan the floor, which is good in a lot of situations, but can also get him into trouble at times when he should just keep his dribble alive and try to keep creating opportunities for himself or his teammates or anyone else to score in an easier way. Again, we talked about reading leverage, something he's great at. Notices El Marco just creeping a little bit too much to play this double ball screen, able to get baseline, finish with the off foot to throw off the timing of whatever rim protection was going to end up being present. And he's definitely quick enough to burn like slow-footed college bigs on the perimeter. But this is kind of what I'm talking about with like jump passing being an issue and not being able to make higher level reads. I think Reed locks on a lot of the times before he leaves the ground, where he's definitely reading McCullough sinking down and he's going to hit Reeves out here. But when McCullough plays this, it looks like maybe he like last second tries to get it to the cutter here, but obviously like the best read here would have been to adjust midair and just drop it down there, which is obviously a difficult play. That's no doubt, but those are the kind of plays that separate the good from the great from the elite passing prospects. And that's, of course, an important thing to parse out. We again see the tendency to stop and survey. Rather, like he has a bit of an advantage here. He could definitely continue pressing this, get into a floater, maybe even get a bit deeper and get an even more open pass, but he stops, pivots, sees the play and makes it. It's really decisive. It's quick. So I think it can work because of that. It's not like he's just like picking it up because he can't think of what to do or whatever. He's doing it because he like has a decision that he wants to make, and like stopping his dribble and doing that is the best way to do that. So that was a nice little film sesh right there. Reed is fantastic especially for what people thought he would be. Just a really smart player, really awesome shooter, has some really important defensive strengths, but real limitations both offensively and defensively in a way that maybe constrict his upside some more of like a role player, third, fourth guard type, but especially in a weaker draft, like that might be good for top 20 at some point. It's definitely looking like he's going to be one and done, and that's probably deserved at this point, but we'll obviously monitor as the season goes on. And let me know if you like this and who else you'd like to see.